I'm going to hit record now. Hello, everybody. This is actually the 27th episode of Artificial Intelligence and Cybersurgery. It's our podcast/webcast of our journal, Artificial Intelligence Surgery, which is the first journal dedicated exclusively to artificial intelligence and surgery. I will let my co-host introduce my old and dear friend. Go ahead.
Fantastic. Hi, this is Dr. Vincent Grasso. I'm the Director of Social Media and Strategy for our journal. As Andrew has said many times, we are the only surgical journal dedicated to all things AI. It's a great pleasure and privilege to have Dr. Arnar Geirsson on today. He's a professor of surgery and the cardiac chief of division chief in cardiac surgery. It's really interesting. You guys did general surgery together. I did a fellowship there. We overlapped a little bit, but what a great place to get trained in surgery and in advanced surgery. And welcome to our podcast, Arnar.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm excited to be here. Looks like I'm the only one dressed up, and
well,
a little bit of hair left here.
Oh, come on! It's just short. So, Arnar, in his defense, you had a conference today. What conference were you?
Correct. So I came up, and that's why I'm a little bit dressed up and try to be.
Okay. Well,
I try to be less formal in the talk. So
we appreciate it. Looking very sharp. So, as I was just telling Vincent, Arnar and I were residents together at Yale, and we were chief residents together. And it's been a while. People may or may not have noticed that you're from Iceland. So, and I was explaining to Vincent about the connection between Yale and Iceland. So could you kind of explain a little bit about that connection, and then we'll talk about what you did after residency, and then where you are now?
Yeah, so thanks. That it is true. There's always been in surgery for the last, I would say, 25 years, a pretty strong connection between Icelandic surgeon training at Yale. And Iceland is a small country. It's only 350,000. And in order to get advanced training, everybody goes abroad. There's a good medical school there. There's high standard of living. Healthcare is very advanced. But, most of the people who get advanced training train abroad. And so it had originally been a general surgeon whose name is Margaret Oddsdottir. He was actually one of the first laparoscopic trained surgeon in the U.S. with Dr. Hunter up in, I think at that time at Emory.
Oh, wow.
And it was interesting to see. I remember when I was in medical school, he came back and he was really pushing laparoscopic surgery. And this is 25 years ago in Iceland, and was in Scandinavia one of the first one to really push that
in the 90s.
So he had trained at Yale with and really set kind of the stage for this relationship. And there are several surgeons who have trained at Yale.
Interesting. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but she was a colorectal surgeon mainly.
No, she was primarily a upper GI laparoscopic surgeon.
Okay.
And then she did a lot of Nissens and those early days of fundoplications and upper GI work.
Because when she was the first resident from Iceland, who was the second resident? Was it you and Gudrun?
So I was the second resident, but at the same time that I came, there were three of us. Gudrun Aspelund, who ended up graduating with us at the same time. We were chief resident together. She came and did 2 years of research and then started. So.
Right.
And then since then, there have been in general surgery, been 2 additional ones that have been other people doing fellowship also.
So I believe when I arrived, and you and I were interns together, right?
Yep. Yeah.
We did the whole thing. So when I arrived is the day Margaret left back to Iceland, I believe.
I think she had been in Iceland for 3 or 4 years prior to this. He may have come for a visit or something like that.
Okay.
Came fair amount back and forth, and
Now,
unfortunately, he passed away at a young age due to cancer. But there still remains a strong connection.
Right. Do you remember what type of cancer off the top of your head?
Breast cancer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I remember. That's why I was getting I had some recollection. I never met her, but she was like legendary at Yale, you know. And now I'm reminded why, because she was really one of the earliest laparoscopic surgeons. I mean, even before I got there. So interestingly, when I got there, as I was there for medical school, I was there for university and then medical school, and then when I started residency as an intern, you remember, Arnar, we went to the what was that, the Top Gun thing with Butch
Oh yeah,
Ross?
yeah. Butch Rosser, yeah.
We would go over the, you know, to that Temple, what was it, Temple Street or whatever.
Yep.
We would go, they had that like whole setup so we could do laparoscopic training.
Yeah, in Temple.
At Temple. And Vincent, tell Arnar what you were doing there.
So Arnar, when I finished, I did general surgery in the Sinai programs in New York. And I was the only surgical resident interested in laparoscopic surgery in the 90s in my program. And I learned how to tie intracorporally myself, right? So I could tie left-handed, right-handed. And then and I was aware of the commercial space center that they had at Yale. So Butch Rosser had his Top Gun, you know, kind of minimally invasive educational and Rick Satava was the director of the commercial space center.
Yep.
So I went up there when I finished general surgery to work with Butch and Rick, and I wound up doing advanced minimally invasive surgery and as well doing IT, doing medical informatics. And across the street from the Temple Department of Surgery office was the New Haven Hotel.
Yep.
And that's where I lived. I lived there for 2 years. I lived in the hotel. I hung around there and we did some cool things. And Butch actually did surgery in the New Haven Hotel. The third floor had an ambulatory suite.
Oh, yeah.
So he would do cases there. It was very, you know, advanced thinking of doing surgery, even, you know, some major surgeries. People would convalesce in one of the rooms converted into a post-op room overnight and go home. And so that was kind of, you know, it was kind of fun. I didn't get to meet Andrew though at that time.
Arnar know that area very well. We must have spent months over there, right?
Yeah.
Ground blue
Sure.
surgery.
Yeah. No, I remember very well when we came as interns and were blown away by Butch Rosser and, you know, the Top Gun themes, you know, showing us how the future of surgery, endoscopic, you know, laparoscopic surgery. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. So
And
Arnar,
he was pretty far advanced at that time, and I think the group there in general have, you know, really pushing forward the field.
yeah. So Arnar, I'm too curious. After we graduated general surgery, you of course you did cardiac, you did CT surgery. And then after that, you went back to Iceland for a little while, no?
No. So I went away from Yale, went to cardiac surgery at University of Pennsylvania, was there for a couple of years. It was a great training program.
Okay.
And then I came back on faculty at Yale. And I
was directly.
I came back on faculty at Yale, was there at the VA and Yale New Haven Hospital. Was actually very interested in that time in minimally invasive surgery. You know, using some robotic stuff early and right thoracotomy, minimally invasive mitral valve operations, kind of an early, you know, did those first operations that done at Yale and in that you know, especially right thoracotomy mitral and robotic coronary surgery. And then I went back home to Iceland for 4 years in 2012 to 2016, and then came back to Yale and to, you know.
Nice. That was nice. No, it must have been nice to be back at home and just, you know, close to the family.
It was good to get experience. It was good to go back to Iceland. It was also a good opportunity that pulled us back to New Haven and, you know, and.
So if I remember correctly, your father was I believe in Texas doing a PhD when you were born?
He's in Brown, Providence.
Brown, Providence.
Rhode Island, so it was close by actually. But I was born in the U.S., but it's only lived there for a year or two, year and a half when I back to Iceland.
But you had your passport, of course.
Yeah.
That made life very easy, I imagine.
Made life very easy regarding that.
Yeah, and now you're on our editorial board, but so is Gudrun, and she's actually back in Iceland. She works for the Ministry of Health, I believe.
Yeah, so she is kind of the equivalent of Dr. Fauci. You know, she's like
crazy. Wow.
For the equivalent of that. Basically.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, she wrote a paper for us about her experience with treating COVID in Iceland. It was one one of the first editorials we published. Yeah, it was surreal. I mean, Vincent, you don't know, but Gudrun is a pediatric surgeon. She after residence, she went to Toronto. She did pediatric surgery, and then she was actually. I remember when I was at Columbia Presbyterian, she worked at Columbia Presbyterian for a long time.
Yeah.
Wow.
She worked at Children's Hospital there for many years, actually.
Many years, yeah. And then I believe, my God, I wonder if she would actually go to. I know there was some kind of link with Bronx Lebanon Hospital. That's where my father worked, and that's where I was born. That's why I remember. I think there was like, they would send patients back or forth, to obviously to Columbia from there. But it's amazing how time flies, my friend.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
I know I have to switch this talk a little bit more to artificial intelligence, but it's just so great to talk to you. Can you give us a little idea of maybe the last 10 years, how things have changed at Yale, and then we'll delve in further to your robotics and your AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think from at least from a clinical standpoint, I think, using robotics, especially, has changed significantly, both in the cardiac space. We set up a robotic mitral program recently. It's been quite successful, but also in the general surgery, obviously urology, but general surgery most recently, I think, has advanced significantly at Yale. Utilization of robot. They've done some robotic kidney transplants, some liver surgery. And so I think, it really has moved forward pretty aggressively. It's interesting. Currently, I'm in actually Florida, Orlando. There's a meeting that Mayo Clinic is talking about advanced robotic and artificial intelligence. So,
oh yeah, of course,
interesting meeting. I mean, this is really all relevant. I think, well, it is kind of current. It's here today, but really the future of surgery is going to be heavily depending on that utilization or proper utilization of advanced robotic and AI.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking with Vincent earlier today that I used to explain to people about the genesis of the journal. That they wanted to. They contacted me that, hey, would you like to be would you like to be editor-in-chief of this new journal called Intelligent Surgery? And I was like, I thought about it, and I'm like, I think we should call it artificial intelligence. But I'm like, am I crazy? And I called a couple of my friends. I might even contacted you at that point. I can't remember. And I was like, can we call the journal Artificial Intelligence Surgery? Now, fast forward, 2 years later, and I'm like, thank God we called it Artificial Intelligence Surgery, because it's everywhere. I'm getting called to do talks all around the world. I just got called to do a talk on artificial intelligence in Jamaica. It's like literally everywhere right now. So it's exciting times. Exciting times.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, there's the other thing. It's, obviously there's AI is going to be used for procedural stuff, planning and stuff, but it's really going to, I think, change the way we do healthcare, predicting complications, change its clinical status with these electronic medical records. And the amount of data that's available and involved in patient care now is so much,
That's crazy.
But I think AI or will eventually, I think, help us, treat patients better. A good example is cardiac surgery. I mean, there's high event rates of complications, just as part of, that's part of how we do things every day. But wouldn't it be great if you had AI, taking all the medical records, and you get like a ping on your phone. It's like, listen, this patient, there's something going on,
they've got a fever, they're tachycardic, of course.
Yeah, a little bit tachycardic, a little bit, temperature is rising, a couple of pounds, you should check this. And wouldn't that be ideal?
So Vincent, yeah, that's Vincent's wheelhouse. Vincent, you're on mute. So I wanted to ask you, can you talk to us a little bit about the limitations of data collection and how close we actually are to real natural language processing being able to get us good and useful data? How many years away are we from that, or is it already here and we're just not using the technology?
Well, the NLP has gotten really, really good, right? So that's sufficiently advanced to be able to do most of the heavy lifting that we need from our documentation. One of the big challenges getting access to these sources of record, systems of record, and making sure that the data that you ingest actually is accurate, right? So, there's you import data from various systems of record. They could be copied, they could have been manipulated, changed. Where's the source of truth? That's a big problem, right? What's the real source of truth? And where are the derivative documents that are being generated by things like ChatGPT? How are they winding up in the corpus of data for our patients? And then there's who has access to the sophisticated folks that can ingest this data and make sense of it and do predictive modeling, like Arnar just said. What about the systems that don't have data scientists on staff? What do they do, right? So, there's massive inequity between the really high performance university systems that have access, and then the community center hospitals that have zero access. So where do patients go, and what's ethical? This is why this is a complicated space, and the physician leaders, I think, are the folks that can help guide the policymakers on the right course of action, because the commercial guys want to make money, right? They're driven by profit. It's okay, but you can see the mess that that winds up Pandora's box once you start playing around. It's an interesting time.
So actually, Vincent, tell Arnar a little bit about what you've been doing, how you've kind of shifted more to the development phase
Sure.
of things.
I was very lucky when I was at Yale with Rick Satava and the folks there. I had a strong IT background before I did my surgical residency. So I did private practice for about 5-6 years. And then I met investors, and I really started moving into the business and information technology side of the equation. And I stopped full-time surgical practice. You can't really be a very good surgeon and go to meetings all week long and be on the phone, so you're either a full-time surgeon or a hack. So I don't think it didn't work out. But I'm really interested and excited about bringing AI to, Andrew and I have talked about the preoperative, the intraoperative, and the postoperative phase. If you could optimize the preoperative success of a patient by doing things that need to get done on time and correctly, the intraoperative experience theoretically is better, right? People are prepared better. And then when you send them home in those 30 days, how do you monitor all these complex patients that have 5 comorbidities?
Yep.
So AI really helps us in the preoperative and the postoperative space, because holistically all 3 parts are important, right? So this is where I think my interest in the research area is, how do we optimize the preoperative experience and the postoperative experience? Because the surgeons are very good in the OR, but then unfortunately the patient gets released out into the void, where there's 9 different doctors trying to coordinate care. It's a mess. So it's challenging, right? Especially for your complex patients.
Yeah, I think there has been, I'm sure there's going to be more. There's wearable devices, that somehow you could connect, telemetry, for example. Even probably just an Apple Watch, you can convert that to, post cardiac surgery patient. At least you can identify the arrhythmias and stuff like that. But there's probably more beyond that you would have to really have, and why not? It could, obviously eventually probably increase healthcare costs, but eventually probably could decrease it, because there's going to be wide use of these devices. We talked a lot of, it's interesting. I think actually COVID moved a lot of that stuff forward. There was more remote monitoring of stuff.
Yeah. More remote. We got more comfortable taking care of patients remotely.
Yeah.
But sorry, go ahead, Arnar.
So I think it, obviously it was a horrendous epidemic, but there was a lot of technological advances that have occurred or pushed forward, stuff that we had kind of thought about, but kind of became a realization, or actual stuff we were doing more during COVID and after COVID.
So Arnar, and actually all 3 of us know that, Yale New Haven has the ivory tower of Yale, but there's a very impoverished part of New Haven. At one point, I think Bridgeport was the heroin capital of the country, and I think New Haven was like number 2. So I don't know. I haven't been in the United States in many years. I haven't worked there now in over 4 years. Are people concerned about how AI can exacerbate problems with delivery of care? It can exacerbate, the historical problem of minorities getting the same access to care as other populations? Are they? I imagine they're talking about
Yeah.
that, but I wonder if they're talking about it in relation to AI specifically.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, I think there's a lot of effort improving, access to care, and it's true. New Haven is interesting demographics, but there has been fair amount of emphasis trying to improve access to care. I think AI actually, or utilization probably should improve above on that. Maybe not initially, but I think in the long term it will.
No, I mean,
I
of
certainly
course,
hope so that
that
would
of
be
course
the goal.
is
Yeah.
our hope. But I use the example of, they use AI, banks use AI to choose which people get loans or
Yeah.
not. And what you're alluding to is, unfortunately, if the algorithm is biased,
Yep.
there's going to be, the poor computer, if it starts
Yep.
from a bias beginning, there's nothing it can do but be biased in the end. So
Yeah, and if people don't have access to, input their data, or we getting the data, and how you're going to then identify them, and if there might be inequity in that from the beginning, basically, that would have to be navigated around.
because there's an interesting difference between the United States and France. In America, you always have to check what quote unquote race you are, Caucasian, Black, Latino, whatever. In France, that doesn't exist. They never ask you that. And I remember it blew my mind. I'm like, what do you mean they don't do? We don't. You are either French or you are not French. As the explanation I got, which is beautiful. As someone who's has a black father and a white mother, I love this concept. But now you can't really study racial differences. So there's the flip side of the coin. Now you're losing that data, and you can't really track if there's problems with certain populations against other ones. So it's amazing. On one hand, it's so beautiful, but on the other hand, there's a dark side to not taking that into account. We know African Americans have an increased risk of death from prostate cancer, of pancreatic cancer, colon cancer. So I don't know how to answer that, but if one of you guys has some idea how to fix that, please chime in. Yeah, there's not much to say there.
No, I think it all comes to input of data and availability of that data initially, and I think it's probably correct. I mean, I think that ultimately it probably, hopefully, will increase improving equity, basically, or ensure equity or access, but it might not be initially if you don't have the adequate input of data and people have access to this technology.
So you actually have a radiologist I met in Houston last year. He's quite big in artificial intelligence, and that just reminded me. You probably don't know who I'm talking about. I should put you two guys together.
Yeah.
He's a sonographer. He's German. Ringing any bells? You probably don't. You probably don't really do a lot with sonographers, but I'll try and find out his name. But he's pretty interested in AI, and it just popped into my head right now. I got to put you two guys together.
Yep.
So I think poor Arnar's had a long day.
Yeah,
and
we are a long day.
We are at the end of our time here, but Arnar, it's great to see you. You literally haven't aged at all. It's a little bit hard to swallow. Looking good. How many? Remind me how many boys you have?
3 boys. 3 adults. Young adults, I would say. They're not boys, they're grown up.
Are they out of the house already?
Well, kind of, almost. But
Wow.
We're done with college.
Wow, crazy. That's amazing. So we'll have to do a follow up in maybe in about 6 months or so. See how things are going and see how your AI projects and your robotic projects are evolving. All right.
All right, excellent. Good to talk to you guys.
You too, Vincent. Close us out, please.
Yeah.
Any last comments?
Dr. Geirsson, thank you so much for your time. We'll looking forward to seeing you again and going a little more detail, perhaps, on in your cardiac work. So, signing off for our podcast with Dr. Gumbs and myself for our surgery journal that's dedicated to all things AI. We're very excited about. We have some new papers that maybe just in closing, Andrew, just to excite everybody. We're working on collectively about 6 papers, right? That'll be some a smattering of different things.
Yeah. Go ahead and tell them about the stuff you're working on.
Yeah, we're working on the OR of the future from a video perspective. So, capturing intraoperative data, video, etc., and the extraoperative experience for human performance seems to be a very interesting topic, especially for robotic surgery. So we're working on that. We're working on, a bunch of technical innovation in the OR and how AI will impact it. So that's kind of the common overarching theme. It's very exciting.
Arnar, do you do any augmented reality? Does that really exist in cardiac surgery?
Not well. There is. In some of the structural stuff, or the transcatheter endovascular stuff, there is kind of a move towards utilization of some of that. Maybe overlay of CT scans and but
Sure.
virtual. It's not quite there yet. And it's probably for the robotic stuff. You should be able to insert it into have those kind of virtual overlay possible. It's not. It hasn't. At least we haven't used it.
Okay, well maybe Vincent, we should involve him on the augmented reality navigation paper where.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Okay.
Okay.
The other papers I'm working on are still top secret, so we'll have to wait until they're published. Okay.
All righty. Good to see you guys.
All right, guys.
Take care, Andrew. Talk tomorrow. Take care.
Bye-bye.